Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access this meeting via virtual means. Participants may access this meeting through the remote meeting link as posted on the meeting agenda and through the town's online calendar. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by raising their hand or otherwise signaling their intent to speak. This meeting will be recorded. Please take care to mute your microphone unless you have been recognized by the chair. We will now confirm attendance of members. Please respond with present if you're on the call. Matthew Ronca.
Present.
Elise Malowski.
Present.
Lucia Lopez.
Present.
Michael King. Parker Happ.
Present.
Peter Mimo.
Present.
Amna Dewan.
Present.
Vikasath Prati.
Present.
And Rob Benson is here. And John, are you going to be able to stay on the call?
I was not planning on it,
Okay.
but if you need someone, I can, I guess. I would have to rearrange my evening schedule. Is there something that is needed? I have not reviewed the memo. I honestly don't even know what the agenda is, so I don't know how much help I would actually be right now.
All right. I don't want to put you on the spot. I think I appreciate you getting us connected, and we will do the best without Aniri here.
Great. All right. I'm going to leave this logged in, but I just assume I'm not behind the screen.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks, John.
Good seeing you all.
All right. Bye. All right. Luckily, without Aniri here, we don't have a extensive agenda. All of our items on today's agenda are administrative items. The meeting minutes actually is Lori on? Lori is not on. Would somebody mind being on the board, mind being a kind of a meeting minutes taker? Any volunteers?
Rob, just to chime in really quick, because I'm getting some texts from confused residents and folks, just given the late start and wondering if it makes sense for us to push this meeting entirely just because there's some confusion right now, and given the lack of staff as well. I don't know if that is like uncouth, but just wanted to throw it out there.
I think there's some people on the call that are here. I think there's things we can push to the next meeting if people aren't on that and if board members feel like we can, but let's try to get through what we can get through. And if we think any of the topics should be moved to a subsequent meeting, we can do that. But let's try to go through. I know, Lucia, you had a comment about the meeting minutes. Aniri and Matthew responded. How are we feeling about the status of the meeting minutes? Is there any open questions?
I had one correction that I didn't have a chance to read it until like 2 hours ago, but my name is spelled wrong under absent. It should be ELYSE, not ELISE.
Okay.
Rob, I had a couple updates also on the. Sorry, I'm just like pulling them up again. Forgive me. But I was wondering if maybe we table the voting on the meeting minutes until next meeting, just because there were a couple edits that I noticed that were inaccurate. Or do we want to discuss them now?
Why don't you send them directly to Aniri? And at least if you want to send that comment to, I think Aniri will probably watch this video, but I'm sure she will. But if you want to send her any of those comments over email, we can do that.
Okay, great.
Yep, I already did.
So I'm going to move on to agenda item 1.2. And Parker, I think this is what you were referring to, that some people that maybe want to be on the call aren't on the call for Osceola Drive street acceptance.
That's correct.
So we have Osceola Drive is maybe the one that requires more. I don't love having this meeting without an Erie here now that we're going through this stuff.
Well, Rob, one thing I wanted to update you on, at least related to this while you're pondering, is I was made aware that a engineering study is being conducted at this time. And so wanted to make sure the planning board was aware of that. And then there's a typo in the letter that says it's misrepresenting the conditions that were, or the amended conditions, and wanted to strike from that sentence modern, as that is not in the additional conditions.
Okay. The thing I don't know without an Erie here is I don't know if we have a time, like I don't think we have a timeline to pass to basically do this. Like I don't think it has to be done today. I guess for this, let's just go. So one first agenda item, meeting minutes, we're gonna basically provide comments to Aneri over email. Second agenda item 1.2, Osceola Drive. How does the board feel about postponing to further any type of recommendations or voting on suggested motions till next meeting? Does anyone have strong opinions one way or another? Matthew, go ahead.
Does anybody feel like it doesn't represent what we discussed in the last meeting?
Matt, I would say that legally this letter is inaccurate because the word modern is included, and by law, the subdivision does not have to adhere to modern standards, so that is inaccurate.
Through the chair, is Parker participating in this as a board member or as a private citizen?
Good question, Lucia. Parker, do you have any comment on that?
I'm whatever you want me to be.
All right. Let me see if I can share my screen and at least bring up the letter here.
To the chair.
Go ahead, Amna.
I think from the last meeting, there were a couple of issues. There was one where Vic was asked to not comment as a board member because it affected him as a conflict of interest, and the same held for Parker. So I think we should just make sure we're being fair to everybody and holding the same standard for all parties.
Thanks, Amna. I agree. Let me see if I can share my screen here. All right, I'm just going to read it out loud and we can go from there. Pursuant to the requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81I, the planning board provides this report relative to a citizen's petition requesting acceptance of Osceola Drive as a public way at the 2026 annual town meeting. The select board requested that the planning board review the petition materials and provide a recommendation regarding the acceptance of Osceola Drive. The board discussed this matter at its meeting on March 9th, 2026. Information on the road and subdivision plan by which it was created is below. Osceola Drive subdivision definitive plan approved 1992. The Osceola Oaks definitive subdivision plan was approved by the planning board in 1992 with a condition requiring the Osceola Drive remain a private way. On December 1st, 2025, the planning board voted to amend the 1992 decision to remove the private road restriction. This amendment was subject to the condition that any future request for public road acceptance must comply with current town standards and procedures, including a modern engineering evaluation of the roadway and drainage system. At this time, the planning board has not received updated engineering documentation, including an evaluation of the roadway and drainage system, updated site drawings, or an as-built plan demonstrating existing conditions. The board also notes that there is no information regarding any required improvements or responsibility for associated costs. The board is sympathetic to the concerns of the Osceola Drive residents. However, based on the information available, the planning board does not feel that it is ready to move forward and support the request for acceptance of Osceola Drive as a public way. At this time, please contact me if you have any questions or need additional information. Sincerely, Robert Benson, Chair. So I heard whether let's take Parker's comment as a private citizen about the modern engineering study. I don't know if that really is I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if that's applicable or not. Does anyone on the board have any opinions? Does this reflect our collective thinking as of the last meeting?
Through the chair,
Go ahead, Peter.
As I recall from the meeting, the consensus was that there was a sympathy for the residents of the road, but we were concerned about there being a lack of the road being prepared and ready to be accepted as a town road, that they didn't meet certain conditions that were set. I think that's more or less reflected in the letter. If there's some other nuance that we're missing, then I think we should hear what those nuances are. But I think from when I read the letter and when you just reread it now, I thought it captured the essence of what we discussed last week or the last meeting.
Thanks, Peter. I tend to agree. Matthew, do you have anything to add?
Exact same thing. Nope.
All right.
Through the chair, I mean, sorry, Peter.
No, Matt, you go.
I was going to make a motion that the board transmit the final report to the select board and recommend the Osceola Drive not be accepted as a public way at town meeting, as the board has not received the required engineering documentation demonstrating that the roadway meets current town standards.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Parker.
The board has received documentation pertaining to the subdivision layout, and it's given that it hasn't material changed in any way other than condition over 30 years, and there have not been any re-engineering or any other time in history. That was submitted as part of the original Form D and C along with this. So again, that letter is inaccurate, but if the board wants to submit it, that's more than welcome to.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Peter.
From my end, I'd like to know more. I don't know from Parker or whomever has an interest in this, who may be present tonight, what inaccuracies they see within this letter, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about what they're trying to convey to us, because I'm not entirely clear on that.
So I'm happy to answer, Peter, if the chair will allow.
You go ahead, Parker.
So, Peter, there is no process for accepting Osceola that the town has in a non-developer submitting to request a road to be accepted, decades after. And so because of that we leveraged a piecemeal set of processes, which included submitting a form, and I can pull up all of them in the record if you give me a moment. But Colby was sent the original as-built plans that were submitted to the town at the time of its construction. And this was not only the draft, but also the accepted plans. So the town is in possession of those. What's happening is that the planning board, there are two processes to road acceptance. There's the select board process, and then there's the planning board process. The planning board process is one that is quite extensive for new developers and has multiple steps that we know of. And the select board process is much more concise and there's about 5 steps. One of which is request approval or request not approval, request the opinion of the planning board to submit or to weigh in and if the road should be accepted. And why I detail that is because this letter is essentially reflecting the planning board process and for an original developer, and not necessarily what the select board was looking for when Elaine sent the email to the board to ask for their opinion. So what it comes down to is the planning board is in possession of, and as part of the original request for road acceptance that was submitted to the select board, this included a Form D and C in the original as-built plans. The planning board, it's in the planning board file as well. So this letter is inaccurate.
Through the chair, if I have a follow-up question, just
Yep, Peter, go ahead.
if you had your opportunity to edit the letter, how would you edit it?
I would omit the section that states that I'm happy to give some edits if we want to table this for now instead of just giving good intentions, but I would probably remove that it has not received updated, has not received engineering documentation, because in no part of the process does it say updated engineering documentation is a requirement of the select board process. And also I would give time, because there is a engineering study that's underway right now that I've become aware of. So I suppose if they want to keep updated, and then you could say that, but the planning board is in possession of documents.
So let me make a couple comments. I agree that as a town, we don't have any real process to accept a street after after the developer is out of the process of developing the road and developing the neighborhood, unless there's some benefit to the town, like the town wants to put a water main on the street and they want to accept the road because they want to have control of the water main or some underground utilities, or if there's a benefit to the town, there's a process, because the town sees, hey, I need to basically make sure this road is up to standards because there's some critical infrastructure underneath the road that I want to ensure that. So I think, as Parker said, there isn't a good process for this scenario. But once the select board asks the planning board, we kind of have our process of how we determine if a road is eligible, should be accepted. So the select board and Elaine, our town manager, I don't think it's required that she asked us our opinion, but really we're relying on what we normally do, is we normally go through, like, is there an engineering evaluation of the road? Does it meet current standards to be accepted as a road? And that's where I think we are, is that there's been no, there's an engineering study, I think, being done now, but as part of, like you said, there's no process for the select board to require an engineering study, but that's typically what we do here in the planning board. And since we were asked, we basically put the question back to who's trying to get it accepted as a public way. Has there been any engineering study done? And the answer up to now is no, there hasn't been, like, on the current state of the road. Like, does it meet current subdivision rules and regulations? So that's where we are.
Through the chair.
One second, Parker. Lucy, go ahead.
I was going to second Matt's motion, and if we want to continue having discussion, then we can do that as well.
All right. We have a second. Is there any additional
Second.
discussion? So Matthew made the motion. Lucia seconded the motion. Do we want any additional discussion?
Is Parker eligible to vote? This is on the letter and not the hearing, right? I don't know. It's purely administrative.
Yeah, I think it could be seen as a conflict of interest since he lives on Osceola Drive. But once again, I'm not. I don't know that I'm the jury on that entirely. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. I don't hear anyone clamoring for additional discussion. So roll call vote. Matthew Ronka,
Yes.
Elise Mayalowski,
I'm sorry. What was the vote for? To deny it?
To not accept the road.
Not
if you want
accept the
the
road,
motion
okay.
so transmit the report as written and saying that we do not suggest accepting the road.
As is. As is written.
Move the board transmit the final report to the select board and recommend that Osceola Drive not be accepted as a public way at town meeting, as the board has not received the required engineering documentation demonstrating that the roadway meets the current town standards.
Okay. Sorry, there was too much discussion in between. So I vote yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Michael is still not on. Peter Mimo,
No.
Amna Dewan,
Yes.
Vikasath Prati,
I think I should recuse myself because of Osceola Drive.
okay. I think I'm a yes. It reflects what we discussed. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses. Matthew, Elise, Lucia, Amna, and myself, Rob. All right, let's move on to Whisperway Street bond release and street acceptance. I'm going to do the same thing I did and bring up the Whisperway. So I'm going to read this one as well, and then we'll go from there. I'll start here for everybody following on. Pursuant to the requirements of Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81I, the Planning Board provides this report relative to the request for acceptance of Whisperway as a public way at the 2026 Annual Town Meeting. The Select Board requested that the Planning Board review the street acceptance materials and provide a recommendation regarding the acceptance of Whisperway. The Board discussed this matter at its meeting on March 23rd, 2026. The information on the road and subdivision plan by which it was created is below. The Whisperway subdivision was approved by the Planning Board in 2019 and is subject to an OSLPD special permit. Construction of the roadway and associated utilities have been ongoing for several years. The applicant, 20th Century Homes, has requested a certificate of completion, release of the construction bond, and acceptance of Whisperway as a public way at the 2026 Annual Town Meeting. The town currently holds a performance guarantee in the amount of $98,235. Bader Group conducted a closeout inspection on March 17th, 2026, and issued an as-built review date March 19th, 2026. While the roadway, utilities, and stormwater infrastructure have been installed, Beta identified a substantial number of required plan modifications and outstanding items that must be addressed before the roadway can be considered for acceptance. These include missing stormwater as-built calculations, missing drainage profiles, required easement clarifications, installation of missing driveway aprons and the ADA ramp, correction of settlement at DMH5, installation of street trees, installation of a dead end sign, and confirmation of infiltration basin performance. These items are required under the town subdivision rules and regulations and stormwater regulations. Based on the information available, the planning board does not feel that it is ready to move forward and support the request for acceptance of Whisperway as a public way at this time. Additional work and updated as-built documentation are required before the board can support street acceptance or bond release. Please contact me if you have any additional questions. All right. Chris, I see you on the call. Do you want to talk? Or is Joe gonna? Do you guys want to make a comment?
Well, thank you. It's Chris Nation representing 20th Century Homes. So, yeah, we're requesting that at least we find some clarity here. I would certainly need some direction. There's a lot on the list. Most of them are simple, clerical in nature that involve just some files and paperwork that we have on hand that it's been submitted over time, like just some of the easements and just a lot of easy low-hanging fruit within those multiple items. There's a few paving things, but they're simple in nature. A top coat on a driveway, some settlement. Those are easy to execute and perfectly acceptable to us. My confusion comes in where I think I've identified like 5 very specific kind of questions, putting together the beta review and DPW's concerns that I won't be able to fulfill the requests unless the board provides clarity. So if we can find a way to isolate time to go through those, or someone can give me the definitive answer as to how I can achieve them. And to keep in mind, I was a little bit taken back when I got some of these reports in that, to me, I thought the heavy lift with this road getting approved was getting the conservation sign off, which we did get in January of this year. And that was, that involved 5+ years of stormwater reporting and management of the roadway and drainage. So it was certainly a shock to me to have people have me, fulfill that obligation for multiple years, and then to kind of get hit with it's not going away, so to speak. I don't know what the where we can finally fulfill someone's obligations if they're not defined clearly. But with that said, I think I don't know when we can discuss I think I've got it narrowed down to like 5 separate sort of questions here that require the board to define to me what to do.
Okay. Typically a lot of this discussion, I think, happens behind the scenes between maybe your engineer, yourself, and our principal planner or beta group, our peer review consultant. Do you think you need the board to provide guidance or the beta group to provide additional information?
I think maybe the easiest way is to provide, say, an example. One example is DPW has made a recommendation which is at odds with the approved plan. And that would be, for example, the entranceway to Cameron Woods parking area. We have constructed it per the plan, per the approved plan, but DPW now coming in 5-6 years later and seeing what's approved and built, they're suggesting we do it differently. And so do I do a suggestion by someone reviewing an approved plan, or do I go and stick with the approved plan and assume that we ignore someone's suggestion? I think I would need without performing a request by DPW, I'm not going to get their approval. So it puts me in a tough spot of, I would like nothing more than to fill obligations, but without having if I fulfill one obligation on one end, I'm not on another. And I don't know how I can get to the end zone operating that way. That's just one example. I think I've got like 5 little nuances like that. Of if there's 20 items on the list, I can fulfill all of them, more boilerplate, administratively, so to speak. But I've got a few that I don't think I'll get there.
All right, let me, without a Neary here, Joe, Mr. Marco, can I ask you a question?
Yes, certainly.
You're involved in a lot of these projects. What normally happens in this scenario? Like Chris described a catch-22 condition. He's trying to serve two masters at the same time. How does this normally get worked out?
What we have always kind of preached on this side is we spend an awful lot of time in committee seeking these permits, getting input from all the stakeholders, and to get to a point where something goes out to bid, something gets constructed, and the approval decision from the board says build it according to the engineered plan, the plan for the site. So normally the default is if the board in its wisdom said build a roadway a certain way, that's what should be built. So we get to this point, now we're asking someone to I guess develop an area, a compromise somewhere in the middle, which doesn't feel like it would satisfy either group. So we always default to what was approved, what were they told to build. That's what you should see at acceptance time.
I tend to agree. I agree. If a plan is approved and the developer spends their resources to build it as the plan, to come in several years after that approved plan to request changes and add additional cost to the project isn't a fair scenario. Does anyone on the board have any other comments? I think I don't know if all the examples are similar, Chris, but my take is if the roadway is built to the approved plan in all aspects, then that's what the goal should be, to try to meet additional feedback that has happened is happening now and that's in opposition of the approved plan. That seems like a never-ending task and a never-ending expense that doesn't seem fair. But all the other points that are, I think, on the beta readout, I think need to be addressed with the beta group, just to basically get those to an agreed upon resolution. Anyone else on the board have any comments?
Through the chair.
Yep.
I did have one question in reading the DPW's letter. It said that part of the original decision said that there should be a sidewalk along Wood Street. I don't know if that was in Beta's response, but it seemed like DPW was asking if that was still a requirement as well.
The chair, may I answer?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was not able to find any reference in the approval agreements to build a sidewalk on Wood Street. I do remember conversations about it, and it seemed that it only was during conversations and site walks. Again, I couldn't find it in any of the approvals, and I think it had it didn't get pushed along the way because of resource area and the busy street, and it was a sidewalk that didn't offer getting to somewhere. The side, at one point that was a loop road, and then it became a cul-de-sac. So there is reference in the approval agreement to construct the sidewalk that does exist down to Wood Street, but and that was asked to be done in phase one, meaning I think the intent was they wanted, the planning board felt that the sidewalk should exist right away. As soon as, the first person's living there, there's access to a sidewalk. That was my general takeaway from how I read and understood and then and we built it that way. The problem with the sidewalk is that there is not a detectable pad at either end. So we have to add an ADA compliant pad at the beginning and the termination up at the top, which is somewhat simple, to be done. So that is one of the questions. Wait a minute, I see this is on someone's report, but I'm unable to locate it on my approval agreement. And I'm looking as closely as I can today, and I'm like, oh boy, I remember the discussion, but I do not see this in my approval. That is what I can offer.
So what I think what I'd like to do is, if the board agrees, is basically, I think our guidance is that the what was approved in the plan is what is the goal, not like adding trying to move the goalposts. May be nice, may add some benefit, but that's not. I don't know that that's a fair thing to ask. So I think that's what my guidance would be, and I'd like to see maybe you try to work out these points with Aneri and the Beta group, and there may be enough time to get these resolved so that this could be a situation where we can recommend approving the road before our town meeting. So I'd like to defer like any type of recommendation or voting or making a motion on this until at least next week, put it on our agenda for next week. I mean, 2 weeks from now, and see if you can at least get in touch with Aneri and our principal planner and try to pave a path forward to close out the remaining open items. Any suggestions or any objection from the board?
Through the chair, I have one question.
Sure.
Do we have to have this done by the? It's really to Mr. Nation as well. Like, do you guys have to go before the select board on April 7th as well, or no?
My understanding is we have to be in front of the select board April 7th.
Okay, so we just have to make a decision before then, Rob, it seems.
So we'd have to make a decision by next 2 weeks from today, the 6th. So let's, I'd like to not make a motion, not vote today, see what progress can be made, see what can be worked out, what can be resolved. So we have an opportunity to consider it in better detail, better informed, and with Aneri here on April 6th. Chris, does that sound okay with you?
That sounds fantastic. I will work diligently towards proper outcome.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Let's move to item 1.4. 30 North Mill Street, Hickory Lane, performance guarantee establishment and Form K endorsement. Is anyone on to speak? Is the applicant on for this?
Yes, I am, Rob. Chuck Joseph, 5 Benson Road.
Hey, Chuck, do you want to kind of give an overview of what you'd like done here?
Sure. This is a property owned by Lynn Nealon, and it's an approved 1-lot subdivision, originally I think in 2009 and then modified in 2012. We have reached an agreement with Lynn to purchase the property pending, updating the approval from Concom and getting the lot release from Planning Board. So with Aneri's guidance, we had submitted a proposed budget for the finishing of the work. and WNS accepted it. And I think we're here looking for the lot release.
So I'll just announce myself really quick. I'm James Pearson with Weston and Sampson. Aneri had tasked me with reviewing the estimate that was provided. And she asked that I attend this evening. Since she's not here, she obviously isn't here to announce me. So I'm just announcing myself. I hope that's okay.
No, that's okay. This is the first time in my tenure on the board that we haven't had our principal planner on the call. So this is a unique experience for myself.
Well, I think you're doing very well considering the circumstances. So, we were given an estimate, or the most recent estimate we were given had a subtotal of just over $51,000. We had recommended to Aneri that an additional 20% contingency be carried on top of that. So the total that I have in front of me is $61,366. Based on our review of the projects, we feel like that's an adequate amount for security for the project. So happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Before we let me open up to the board. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Matthew, go ahead.
Thanks. I was trying to figure out where the 51,000 estimate was. Which file is it in? Because the Form G that's there is like 49606. So I was just trying to figure out where the. Yeah, so there was a little back and forth between ourselves and Aneri, and I think she communicated some of our questions to the applicant. The estimate that you have in front of you, it sounds like maybe didn't include a couple of additional things that we told Aneri needed to be included. Namely, I think it was mainly some additional work with some of the plantings and the wetland replication and some of the loaming and seeding of disturbed areas. So we suggested to Aneri to talk to the applicant and see if they could include that on there. And with the latest revision of the estimate, it looks like they have. And so that's where we're getting that total now of just over 51,000. And Rob, the applicant was in agreement with the 61K estimate.
Mr. Joseph, does that
Yes.
sound?
Yes, we
sounds
are.
okay to you?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Anyone else on the board have any other questions? Lucia, go ahead.
I was in reading through the documents. It said there was going to be a 7.55 acre conservation restriction. Is that something that has already happened, or?
Mr. Joseph, do you want to answer?
I can speak to that. That has not happened yet. It is part of the approval process that prior to getting a certificate of occupancy or whatever for the completed house, that the transfer will occur on the 7.5 acre parcel. It's actually not, it doesn't necessarily have to be a transfer. The future owner can own the parcel, but the conservation restriction easement has to be placed on it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we've just seen these come before the board where the requirements that were put in place didn't happen, and we just want to make sure that all of that is taken care of.
Understood.
All right, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion that the planning board set the performance guarantee for 30 North Mill Street, Hickory Lane subdivision at $61,366.80.
So moved.
Thanks, Matthew.
Second vote.
Thanks, Peter. Roll call vote. Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Peter Mimo,
Yes.
Amna Dewan,
Yes.
Vikasath Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is a yes. All right. Thanks, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you to the
Thanks,
board.
thanks,
Thank you.
James. Thanks for
You're
joining.
welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Moving on to our next agenda item, 1.5, Chester Street Extension Bond Release. The applicant for Chester Street Extension Project requested the release of a performance guarantee stating that all work at Chester Street has been completed. The town currently holds a performance guarantee in the amount of $15,170 established by the planning board on January 6, 2025. Beta conducted a closeout inspection on March 17, 2026 and reviewed the as-built plan for compliance with the approved plans. While the site is generally complete, Beta identified several outstanding items that must be addressed prior to bond release. These include providing loam and seed mix at the driveway edge, identifying all fences and plantings on the as-built plan, and removing the dumpster and remaining construction materials from the site. These items are listed in Beta's March 19th, 2026 report. Based on the outstanding items identifying, the peer review staff recommends that the planning board not release the bond this time and continue this item to the next planning board meeting to allow the applicant to complete this remaining work. Is the applicant on?
Yes, we are both here.
So based on what our principal planner Aneri said, like we would like to have this on our agenda for 2 weeks from now. So any remaining items can be closed out between you as the applicant and the Beta Group, our peer review consultant, so we can get to a situation where we can vote in the positive direction.
Okay, just is it helpful to give the board some additional information that we had sent to Aneri?
You can. I don't know what the information is, so we can.
Sure. So there were 4 items. One is around lumen seed, which was done in the fall, and we had sent pictures on November 24th. So those were sent to her. The dumpster, we are completing our move-in, and as any of you who have moved know, there's a lot of trash that comes with that. So our hope is to have those dumpsters removed within the next month. There are no fences that have been installed on the property. That was something that Beta wanted us to address, nor are we intending to install any. And there was also a question about a grinder pump, which was not installed as part of the sewer system. It's a gravity sewer connection. So I think that's probably all of the things that Beta was asking us to do, which we kind of feel were resolved or will be resolved in the near future.
Okay, I think so. As a board, we subcontract these peer review to outside consultants. In this case, Beta Group, and typically these get like they're not on right now. They're not on the call right now. So what would be beneficial to us if that was just agreed upon between you and the Beta Group outside of this meeting, because I can't. I don't think we can agree that those are all in process of being resolved or resolved where we could vote to move this forward at this time. So that's what I think needs to happen is those can this week and next week before our next meeting, you can get those agreed upon with the Beta Group and our principal planner, and then we could vote to that we should release the bond for this project. That's okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Hopefully that won't be painful. It's just if the peer review, if they were on right now, I think we could maybe discuss and we could discuss in real time, but without them and without our principal planner, who had a personal issue, we're kind of that's where we are. All right. So we're going to add that to our agenda item for 2 weeks, April 6th. All right. Is anyone, did someone have, or somebody want to start the discussion of charter review survey?
You can.
Okay, you folks gonna sign that? Is it any special vote? Rob's good about falling on his sword, so.
Hold on. Go ahead, Peter.
You can blame me for this. I'm a member of the Charter Review Committee, and I had one of the tasks that we've been assigned to do, of course, is to try to get feedback from the other boards, committees, and department heads about what their views are about the charter, our foundational document that organizes our government, and I had sent out a survey, and we're hoping to get some feedback from the other boards and committees. Just by a little way of background, we're providing a review and study and to recommend some improvements to the town charter. We had sent out surveys to other town directors, boards, and committees. Just as earlier this week, I sit on the town's Board of Assessors, and we took a look at them, and the general consensus was to offer a little bit of feedback at the meeting on Tuesday that we have, but then also sort of send in particularized answers to the survey questions that I had circulated earlier. My thought on this is we probably would want to sort of, maybe if we have an opportunity, if you want to take the opportunity to have a discussion about some of the items that were captured in the survey, this is a good opportunity perhaps to do that. If the board would rather take the opportunity to sort of provide individual sort of feedback to the survey questions, that's certainly the path that the assessors had taken earlier this week. Just some food for thought as far as, where I sit in the Charter Review Committee is that, we're looking at a number of, based on the feedback that we've been receiving from other boards and committees, they're tackling other issues such as, the composition of the boards that they're on. Is it too many? Is it too few? The terms that they're serving, too long, too short? Whether or not they would like to see some particular ability to have appointment authority of some of the town officers or employees who are associated with their elected boards, appointment authority, supervision authority, things along those lines. There's a particular question about whether or not there should be a required rotation of public body chairs on an annual basis, some other basis as well. I do note that just from my observations of the town charter as it pertains to the planning board, there's at least one particular issue that's a little bit odd about it, is that we do have the ability to appoint a town planner and to have provide with input from the town manager, but I don't think a town planner exists. I think we have a principal planner, and we have the title that John Gelsich has, which is a very long title, but I know it's not town planner. So I think there might be some areas where we may want to clean up some of the some of the language in the charter as it pertains to the planning board. But essentially, I'm trying not to be too scatterbrained about this. But if the planning board members would like to offer some feedback on the survey questions tonight, I'm happy to take it back to the charter review. If they would rather offer it individually by within a relatively short period of time, that would be helpful to us as a committee as well. So there you have it.
All right, thanks, Peter. 1 second, Joe, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, through the chair. Was there going to be a discussion about the Form K for the Hickory Way? Does that need a vote from the official vote from the group to move that forward? If I'm out of line, please say so.
My thinking was like what Iniri wrote in our meeting agenda, like our meeting write-up, is based on the outstanding items identified in the peer review. It is recommended that the planning board not support street acceptance at this time and not release the bond.
Rob, I think that's the next one.
The 30
or the
North
one
Mill,
for that.
Hickory
It's the
Way.
second motion. We only set the performance guarantee and then we moved on to Chester Street. There's two suggested motions.
In section 1.3?
1.4.
Oh.
The second motion is contingent on.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah, I made a mistake. Peter, I'm sorry to derail, but we'll go back. I'd like to close this out. It was my mistake.
Worries.
So as part of Hickory Lane, 30 North Mill Street, we need to, so we did the first one to move the set the performance guarantee at $61,366. So the second motion Is there any discussion warranted? Anyone on the board have any? All right. I'd like to entertain a motion that the planning board endorse the Form K for 30 North Mill Street, Hickory Lane subdivision, releasing the remaining lot contingent upon receipt by the town of the performance guarantee for the remaining work.
So moved.
Second that.
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Peter. Roll call vote. Matthew Ronca,
Yes.
Elise Mayalowski,
Yes.
Lucia Lopez,
Yes.
Parker Happ,
Yes.
Peter Mimo. Was that a yes?
Yes, that's a yes.
Amna Dewan,
Yes.
Vika South Prati,
Yes.
and Rob Benson is yes. All right. Sorry about that. I was trying to go too fast, I guess.
Well, thank you. And I apologize, Peter, for stepping all over your presentation.
Thank you.
Quite all right. Thank you.
So we're going to jump back to item 1.6 on our agenda, discussion of charter review survey.
So I guess just through the chair, what is the board's fancy? Do we have the appetite for having a discussion about these survey questions, or would we rather sort of provide individual feedback?
Let me at least share my screen to show the questions. So if anybody's watching or will watch in the future, they can at least see the questions.
And I know it is perfectly acceptable if the answer is not applicable.
So I think from my point of view, I've read the town charter a few times, but I didn't read it in the past couple weeks to really be able to answer these questions or have comment in real time. I don't know how other people feel. Lucia, go ahead.
I think to Peter's point, that was actually my question in reading through the town charter was it says we appoint a town planner, but Aniri just started and she's the principal planner. So is it meant for the planning board to be involved in that process? Or, did they change from a town planner to a principal planner at some point, but the wording wasn't updated? I think that was an open question for me.
Yeah, through the chair, I my understanding is that that there was that there had been a town. I suppose there had been the ability to appoint a town planner, but there was an effort to change the title so that it would be effectively taken away from the planning board to have an ability to hire or appoint or to supervise that particular staff person. I could be wrong about that, but I believe. But the fact is that there's no town planner. So does it require? So is a matter of is it a matter of changing it such that the planning board does have a particular authority again, or is it just to sort of continue it so that we no longer, does it make sense for an elected board of a 9-member elected board to have supervision of a particular planner, town or principal? These are questions that I think that, we should probably want to provide some feedback. And to be perfectly clear, the Charter Review Committee reviews, studies, recommends. We don't actually change it. That's up to the town, of course, to do that. But we are in the process of studying it and trying to figure out and correct some anomalies and some sort of ambiguities here and there too. So, and this appears to be one of them as it pertains to the planning board.
I have a follow-up to that.
Go ahead, Lucia.
Peter, do you know when that was changed, when the town planner became the principal planner?
That I'm not aware of. I can tell you that this particular charter has been in effect, of course, since 2017, but when that particular change came into place, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, so I think that would be a useful discussion for the planning board to have once we have, I guess, some of the history of whether the planning board was involved and when that changed, when the title was changed from town planner to principal planner, and if the planning board would like to be involved in the future.
Just through the chair.
Go ahead, Peter.
I mean, I can tell you that if you read through the town charter, that it's a bit inconsistent when you can look at other elected boards and their roles with their associated sort of professional town hall staff. Some have the ability to appoint and the ability to supervise, and others have none at all. The assessors being one of them, none at all, in the none at all category. So it's a bit of a mishmash. And so I think that, one of the things that we're looking to study is perhaps is there an appetite for the town to have a certain consistency among the relationship between elected boards and the professional town hall staff who support them? Is there to make that consistent, or is there rather, there's a reason for differences and that should be preserved? It should be studied at least, and it should be at least we should be made aware of it.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Parker.
Peter, just to answer your question directly, the gaps or areas, and I've frankly don't have a lot of experience with redoing charters. In fact, I think it's cool that you're, electing to throw your hat in the ring and take on this. So apologies if some of this is redundant or duplicitous to efforts you've already made, but we don't have, as a board, we're very reactive and instead of proactive, in my opinion. And so having more emphasis in the charter that the planning board can be a lead advisor on land use strategy, for example, and a steward for long-term growth that aligns with, the 10-year capital plan. Because we essentially are very reactive. And I think if we had part of the charter requiring more proactive measures, it could be beneficial. And then the other piece too is, and maybe less to do with us, but I think it's 10 years is too long for us to not only review the charter, but also, potentially even our zoning. So having a more regular mandated review of zoning that's, again, proactive and aligned with the changing of the market and growth strategies could be beneficial. And then last was if we had a way to clarify who's actually owning what for each of these. And this kind of goes more with your professionalism bit, but just so there's not interpretation risk or political conflict, that we have clear swim lanes for, what we're able to, control within, that economic development advisory capacity, I think could be beneficial too. But that's just a couple thoughts. Have more structured reviews, alignment with our capital planning or capital or long-term planning, and the more frequent review cycle, because things change pretty quick in 10 years. My hairline especially, but that's a whole nother topic.
Thank you for sharing that, Parker.
Matthew, go ahead.
Thanks. Just responding to the previous statement, there's nothing that makes the planning board necessarily be reactive. In the past, we've been very proactive in proposing connectivity aspects of town, et cetera. So it's really what the board makes of it. Whereas in the last few years, I think we've had trouble getting more than 3 or sometimes 4 people on a site walk. And so I'm curious to what degree we could mandate in the charter that the board were more proactive. If we have ideas, we can definitely for zoning, we definitely send them to Zach on a more regular basis to analyze things. I guess I'm kind of curious to what degree we what mandating that the board were more active would look like.
Lucia, go ahead.
I think going off of that, in affordable housing, we were just talking about an updated housing production plan, which I think is something that the principal planner or the land use department maybe is a part of. I don't know if they spearhead or if the town manager does, but that would be something that would be a proactive step in kind of seeing what housing looks like in Hopkinton, in the region, where people feel there's a need for certain kinds of housing, and how, as a town, we can move forward and get more of the housing that we want.
I guess I appreciate all of these insightful comments, and I'm also particularly grateful that this is recorded, so I can go ahead and look back at it when I report back to the Charter Review Committee. Would it make some sense then for if to the extent that you want to provide feedback to some of the particular questions on there, but would it make sense to sort of offer those to me individually, and I can sort of collate that? Would that be helpful? I think it would be helpful to me, I think, to let you know that, frankly. Questions about setting a budget, that sort of thing, doesn't appear to be applicable to the planning board, but other answers to other questions in particular about, thoughts about, elected versus appointed positions, that's something that we're taking a look at. Also things about questions about the composition of particular boards. One thing that, I can tell you, for instance, that some of the survey responses for the head of the Board of Health, they're looking to see if they can't increase the numbers. They're thinking about suggesting that they move from a 3-person board to a 5-person board. At least the health director sort of seems to think that way. Is that, is 9 too much for the planning board? Is 5-year terms too much for the planning board? Is it too little? My God, don't say it's too little. But in any event, it's sort of, if we think that there are some things about the way that we're operating, the way that we're reflected in the charter in terms of composition, in terms of service for the offices that we hold, this is an opportunity for us to offer that kind of feedback. I can tell you too that we're still in the process of gathering data from comparable communities to see how they operate, in their planning boards and other boards and committees as well, which I'm sure will provide some insight as to, how does Hopkinton operate relative to our comparators. We're still gathering that information. But things like along those lines would be helpful to me if I can get answers to those particular questions, if you could address those particular topics that are addressed in the survey questions, and I can report back, and we can sort of make sure that we're gathering the right information and we're having your views reflected, conveyed to us so we can do our jobs particularly well, we hope. So.
Thanks, Peter. I think trying to understand across our whole town government where elected responsibilities end and pay and our town staff's responsibilities begin and end is not an easy thing to do across the board. You look at everything from planning to Parks and Rec and select board versus the town manager. It's I'm sure it can get, it's not, I'm sure it's not uniform on every facet of our town government. So I'm glad you're looking at it with the Charter Review Board. So it sounds like a very worthwhile endeavor.
Thank you. I don't have anything else to add on this particular topic. I do hope though they would take a little bit of time and provide me with the responses that will be helpful to me. Thank you.
I will do that on my end. All right. At this time, that wraps up our agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Matthew. Roll call vote. Matthew Ronca.
Yes.
Elise Mayalowski.
Yes.
Lucia Lopez.
Yes.
Parker Hab.
Yes.
Peter Mimo.
Yes.
Amna Dewan.
Yes.
Vikas South Prati.
Yes.
And Rob Benson is yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. We managed to get through this meeting without an Erie. So hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.